The thing about a tent zipped from the outside is that it cannot happen accidentally. You zip a tent from the inside when you go to sleep. That is how tents work. The zipper pull is on the inside so the person inside can operate it. If you find a tent zipped from the outside, it means one of two things. Either the person inside unzipped it from inside, and then someone outside zipped it back after they left, or the person never zipped it from inside at all. Neither of those explanations helped me sleep for a long time after we found Ryan's tent. Ryan was 34, a mechanical engineer, methodical person. The kind of person who checked the weather forecast 3 times before a camping trip and packed in lists and never forgot anything. He was my brother-in-law and one of my closest friends, and the most careful person I have ever spent time in the outdoors with. The trip was his idea, a 4-day solo trip in the Ozark National Forest in Arkansas. He had done solo trips before. Not often, but enough that none of us were worried. He had given his wife Emma a detailed itinerary, trailhead location, campsite coordinates for each night, expected return time on day 4. He did not return on day 4. Emma called me at 7 in the evening. Ryan had been due back at 4. She had tried his cell phone, which she knew would not have signal, but tried anyway. She had called the county sheriff and been told to wait until morning given the remote terrain. We did not wait until morning. Emma and I drove out that night and reached the trailhead at 1 in the morning. His truck was in the parking area. That was the first thing. His truck was there, which meant he had not driven out, which meant he was still in there somewhere. We started down the trail with headlamps. Following his itinerary, he had planned to camp at a specific creek junction on night 3, which was the last night before his return. That was where we headed. We found his camp at 5 in the morning. The campfire was burning, not embers, burning. Fresh wood on it recently, which meant someone had fed that fire within the past few hours. I stood at the edge of the clearing, looking at the burning fire and feeling something shift in my understanding of the situation. His tent was standing, perfectly pitched, guy lines staked correctly the way Ryan always did it. Everything exactly as he would have left it. I went to the tent and called his name. Nothing. I reached for the zipper. The zipper was on the outside. I stood there with my hand on the zipper pull on the outside of my brother-in-law's tent and processed what that meant. Then I unzipped it and looked inside. Sleeping bag, neatly arranged. His pillow. His headlamp on the ground beside the sleeping bag. His boots sitting together at the foot of the sleeping area. His phone on top of the sleeping bag. I picked up the phone. Battery at 42%. No missed calls because there was no signal. His last outgoing message was to Emma, sent 2 nights before from a location with temporary signal. Said he was having a great trip and would see her Friday. I looked at the burning fire. Someone had fed that fire after Ryan left his tent, or before he got into it. The fire did not feed itself. Fresh wood meant hands. Hands meant a person. The person was not Ryan because Ryan's boots were in the tent. Search and rescue arrived by 8 in the morning. They found the trail of his boot prints leading from the creek to the campsite on day 3 arrival. They found no prints leaving the campsite in any direction. The ground around the camp was soft enough to hold impressions, and there were no impressions of Ryan's boots anywhere outside the tent perimeter. They found one additional set of prints. Different boots, larger, coming from the tree line on the north side of the clearing, going to the fire, returning to the tree line. Then nothing. Someone had come to the fire from the north tree line, fed it, gone back. The search ran for 8 days. Emma stayed at the trailhead for most of it. I stayed with her. On day 6, the search coordinator sat us down and explained the situation in the careful language that professionals use when they want to communicate something difficult without using the words that would make it real. Ryan was not found. He has been listed as a missing person for 3 years. Emma still lives in the house they bought together. His tools are still in the garage because she has not been able to move them. His truck is still in the driveway. I think about the boots inside the tent most. About a man who spent 4 days hiking alone in the Ozarks and checked the weather forecast 3 times before he left and packed from a list who nonetheless walked out of his tent at night without his boots. About the fire burning when we arrived. About the hands that fed it. About who was sitting at my brother-in-law's campfire in the Arkansas forest at 1 in the morning. About whether they saw our headlamps coming down the trail. About where they went. I am going to write this as clearly as I can because clarity is the only thing I have left to offer, and I want to offer it completely. My son Noah was 26 years old. He had been hiking and camping since he could carry his own pack, which was around age 8. I taught him. His mother and I both did. We spent more weekends in the mountains than I can count over the years. And Noah had absorbed all of it. The gear knowledge, the navigation, the judgment about weather and terrain, and when to turn around. He was more capable in the outdoors at 26 than I was at 40. He went alone into the mountains of northern New Mexico on the first weekend of October. A trail he had done twice before. Familiar terrain. Good weather forecast. He called me from the trailhead before he started, told me the plan, said he would call Sunday evening when he got back to his car. Sunday evening came and went. No call. I told myself his battery had died. I told myself he had stayed an extra night. I told myself every reasonable thing that a father tells himself in the specific period between when a child was supposed to call and when the worry becomes something that needs to be acted on. At 9 on Sunday night, I called the County Search and Rescue Non-Emergency Line. They found his car at the trailhead Monday morning. The search began immediately. I drove 12 hours and arrived Monday afternoon. The search coordinator met me at the trailhead. He was a calm man who had done this work for a long time and who spoke carefully and looked me in the eyes when he talked, and I appreciated both of those things, even though nothing he said made anything better. They had his planned route. They were working it systematically. He asked me questions about Noah, physical condition, experience level, whether he carried a personal locator beacon. He did not carry a beacon. I had suggested it before the trip, and he had said he had done this trail twice and knew it and would be fine. We searched for 5 days before they found his phone. It was in a creek drainage about 2 miles off his planned route, sitting on a rock above the waterline the way you place something when you are thinking clearly and want it to stay dry. Not dropped, placed. The evidence technician retrieved it and charged it. The last activity on the phone was a call to my number, made at 6:43 Saturday evening from an approximate location that put him close to where the phone was found. I had missed the call. I was at dinner with my wife, and I had my phone on silent, and I had missed the call. The call lasted 11 seconds. The technician played the voicemail for me in a white room at the county sheriff's office, with my wife holding my hand on one side and a victim services coordinator sitting quietly on the other. It was Noah's voice, clear enough to recognize immediately. Whatever signal he had found was strong enough for a clear call. He said, "Dad." Then he said, "Something is wrong." Then the call dropped. 11 seconds. Those are the last words I have from my son. Something is wrong. I have heard those words in that voice every day for 2 years. At dinner, in the shower, in the specific quiet of 3 in the morning when I wake up and cannot go back to sleep. The search found no further trace. The creek drainage where the phone was found was searched in detail. The terrain around it in every direction. Nothing. Noah has not been found. His mother and I have kept his number active. Neither of us has been able to cancel it. Sometimes one of us calls it just to hear his voicemail. I think about what he saw or heard in the 2 miles between his planned route and the creek drainage where the phone was found. About what made him leave the trail he knew. About the 6 minutes between the call dropping and whatever happened next. About the 11 seconds. About the specific sound of his voice saying, "Dad." About whether he knew I was not going to answer. About whether he left a voicemail because he wanted me to have something, or because he thought I would pick up and I did not. I carry my phone on full volume now. Everywhere. Always. It does not ring with his number, but I carry it that way because I cannot do anything else. I am a retired search and rescue volunteer. 23 years. Hundreds of searches across 4 states. I have found people alive. And I have found people who were not alive. And I have worked searches where we found nothing at all. The nothing searches are the ones that stay with you. The ones where the terrain gives you no answer and the family goes home without closure and the case file sits in a drawer somewhere accumulating years without resolution. In 23 years, I worked 11 nothing searches. The one I am going to describe was different from the other 10 in a way that I have never been able to resolve and that I think about more than any other search I have ever worked. The subject was a man in his late 40s, experienced outdoorsman, retired military. He had been hiking alone in the mountains of eastern Washington when he was reported overdue by his wife. She had his planned route and his expected return time, and when both passed, she called it in immediately. We had his route. We had a recent photograph. We had a good description of his gear and clothing. We had his physical condition, which was excellent. We had everything you want at the start of a search. We also had dogs. The dog teams were the best resource we had on a search like this. Terrain where visual search is difficult. Dense forest with multiple drainages and elevation changes that make ground coverage slow and incomplete. Good dogs working a fresh scent trail can cover in an hour what a human team takes a day to cover, and they can work terrain that humans simply cannot access. The lead dog team was handled by a woman named Carol, who had been working search dogs for 15 years. Her primary dog was a bloodhound named Porter, who had worked more searches than most people on our team and had never once failed to work a scent trail to its end. Porter picked up the subject's scent at his last known campsite on the first morning, worked it clearly and confidently. The dog language for a strong scent trail is unmistakable to anyone who has worked with dogs long enough. And Porter was clearly on a strong trail, moving at a pace that told Carol this was fresh and clear. The trail went northeast from the campsite, up a drainage, along a ridge, into terrain that was increasingly steep and rocky. Porter worked it for 2 hours, moving steadily without hesitation. Then he stopped. Not the gradual slowing that happens when a trail goes cold. Not the circling behavior that indicates a lost trail. A hard stop. 4 feet planted, head up, moving only to look at Carol. And then back at the ground, in front of him. The hard stop was at the edge of a cliff band, a 20-foot drop into a boulder field below. Carol checked below. Our ground team checked below. The boulder field was searched thoroughly. No subject. No gear. No disturbed rock or soil that would indicate a fall. The trail simply stopped at the edge of the cliff. Porter worked the edge in both directions for 200 meters each way. He did not pick up a continuation of the trail in either direction. He worked the top of the cliff band, and he worked the bottom through the boulder field, and the trail ended at the edge and did not continue anywhere we could find. I have worked with search dogs long enough to understand what their behavior means and what it does not mean. A hard stop at a location with no continuation means the scent ends there. The subject was at that spot. The scent does not continue from that spot. There are limited explanations for a scent trail that ends at the edge of a cliff with no continuation above or below. I have thought about all of them. The subject was not found. The search ran for 9 days. The cliff band was examined by technical climbing teams who could access sections of it that our ground teams could not reach. Nothing found anywhere on the face or at the base. I submitted my report and wrote my notes, and the case went into the files. I retired 2 years later. In 23 years of search and rescue, I worked 11 nothing searches. The others I eventually made a kind of peace with. Terrain that defeated us. Weather that compromised evidence. Time that worked against us. The cliff band search I have not made peace with. Porter was not wrong. He was never wrong in 15 years of searching. The trail ended where he said it ended, and it did not continue where he said it did not continue. What I cannot explain is what that means. A man's scent trail ends at the edge of a cliff. The cliff shows no evidence of a fall. The ground below shows no evidence of landing. The trail does not continue in any direction from the edge. I do not have an explanation that accounts for all of those facts simultaneously. Neither does anyone else who worked that search. The subject remains missing. The cliff band is in a wilderness area that sees very little traffic. It is marked on our team's internal maps with a notation that means unresolved. There are 17 locations on those maps with that notation from 23 years of searches. The cliff band is the only one that I return to in my mind regularly. The only one where the physical evidence produced a question that I have never been able to stop trying to answer. Where does a man's scent trail go when it ends at the edge of a cliff and does not continue anywhere below? I do not know. After 23 years, I am telling you honestly that I do not know, and not knowing is the thing that keeps me up.